don't know where they are.
That's the problem. That should tell you that they're not a presence,
yeah,
because we're two Black Americans, and we're two Black Americans. We should.
I mean, the FBI is not going to be lying. I'm not a fan of the FBI.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not a fan of either. But I'm saying is that if this was something that was so obvious, exactly where they are. Because I walk down the street over here, they're in Virginia, in this city, in this town. They meet here on Sundays. Every Black American that I ask that says there's a Nazi or KKK presence, you just go, where? They go, I don't know, I read it somewhere. And I think that's unacceptable.
Well, they often cite this SPLC hate map that looks like
SPLC
post offices.
I'm on the SPLC list.
No, SPLC, tell me what the SPLC is now.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has this hate map.
Oh, yeah.
And you look at it, and it honestly looks like post offices. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
No,
and you go, that's
but same with your Anti-Defamation League will tell you that there are hate groups against Black folk, against Jews, against Muslims, against a variety of different folk, and they've got some data.
But they're
also not considered a credible source.
They're not, because they're funded. No, they're not. They're funded leftists. They're funded leftists.
Oh no, Anti-Defamation is not left.
I sat in Congress with them, and I'm telling you right now, if you saw my recent thing in Congress, I was sitting with all of these professors and all of these people that were, and they had no numbers, and they said, well, we don't know the numbers, but we do know that it's happening. So to me, that seems like a means to control Black Americans. This is what I talk about. If this was such a big issue that we had to be worried about it, we wouldn't need an FBI report to tell us. No one needed. My grandpa growing up in the South with the real KKK, he wasn't waiting on an FBI report to tell him that the KKK was there. They were outside of his door, shooting bullets inside, and he was running to the back of his house. So this now we have people that are more fearful, and yet there's less evidence, except they keep saying that there are reports and there are groups that are telling them. That's what I think we have to step outside of. Fair?
If you got all these different attacks, sister, on folk, not just in churches, but people with death threats and so forth, and these folk who supposedly are keeping track on the sources of these threats, say that they're not just falling from the sky. There's got to be some networks that are in place.
Well, they say that Candace and I are the network. They say that Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin are the network.
I don't think nobody said Sister Candace is head of any
I'm on the SPLC list. They put some map on it. They said that I was radicalizing people on the internet. Is it such a radical idea to think that Black Americans can do it without government handouts? Okay, then guilty as charged, because that's literally what I go around and I say on stage. I say Black Americans can do it without government handouts. I am now across the board. They say that I'm radical and I'm poisoning people. They tried to blame me for inspiring a mass shooting in New Zealand, saying that this person got radicalized by my ideas of Black conservatism in America. I mean, they play really horrible stuff. And fortunately for you, because you hail in liberal land, you are a liberal.
Well, I'm not liberal now. I'm a leftist.
You're a leftist.
I'm a leftist.
Sorry.
I'm critical, yeah.
What's the difference?
The difference is liberalism refuses to engage in the critique of capitalism, refuses to engage in the critique of empire and imperial policies, and refuses to engage in the milquetoast character of the Democratic Party. Liberals are in the Democratic Party. I have a critique of the milquetoast character of the Democratic Party. Okay. When you talk about the plantation of the Democratic Party, I'm with you wholeheartedly. I've talked about the Obama plantation. We can talk about the Clinton plantation and so forth. Now, I come right back and say, there's a Trump plantation too. All of these politicians, all of these parties have their plantation.
Well, I'm not a party person. I don't tell people that you can go anywhere and hear me speak. There's nowhere where I tell people that they should abandon the Democrat Party and go to the Republican Party.
But you got a critique of the Democratic Party, Democratic leadership.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
And Republican leadership as well. I mean, there are people in the Republican Party I still have absolutely no respect, God bless his soul, for John McCain, the Paul Ryan types. I regularly critique those people too, but it doesn't make the headlines, right? So I mean, I critique both. What I advocate for is independence, and particularly government independence and shrinking government. I believe in free markets and a limited government structure. That's pretty much what I believe. And yeah, I'm painted as this horrific monster. I mean, you saw it after our debate. Like, we had a debate, and it's like headlines, big explosion. That's not how I felt ending that debate. That's not how you felt. I emailed, tried to get him on the show, but that's what they need. They need to make it seem like we're constantly at war.
Well, you're a huge threat to the left.
They sensationalize all the time for their own needs, for their own gain. No, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. And I think Candace is a threat to the left because she's bringing blacks to Trump. And without the black vote, the DNC is done forever. Can you maybe explain what Blexit is?
Yeah, so I mean, I started the Black exit from the Democrat Party we've seen pretty much the same thing. The Democrats, it's undoubtedly have taken advantage of the Black vote over the last 6 decades. I mean, that is not, you cannot question that. And any Black person in good conscience that sits down and says that the Democrat Party has not taken advantage of the Black vote, in my opinion, is a bad moral character. You have to watch those bad faith actors. To me, Blexit is about reminding the Black community that we are staunchly conservative. We are conservative. You cannot untether the Black community from our faith. You know, I grew up in a very Christian household. You cannot untether the Black community, although the government has systemically attempted it, from the family. I grew up in my grandfather, which just was all about the family. These are largely conservative principles now, as you have the left is advocating really for the disruption of family. Men can be women and women should be men, and kids should pick their gender. And if you Google, this is a real thing, if you Google straight couples, all that returns back to you are gay couples. And they say there's something wrong with you if you believe in the nuclear family. And they're trying to grow government. And we've already experimented with that in the Black community. We've seen that more government has earned us more heartache over the last 60 years. You can look at any statistic. Illiteracy rates in Black America, they're not serving us in terms of the Department of the Education. You know that, I know that. The breakdown of families, single motherhood rate at an all-time high at 74%. You know that, I know that. So how can we stand behind people that are advocating for more government? Handouts, $22 trillion into the welfare system. Black Americans are poorer today than when they started giving out welfare in the beginning. So my perspective is just, we gotta try something different, and that something different is getting up off our own 2 feet, putting our families back together, starting our own businesses, and that is a free market capitalist perspective, which lands me on the side of conservatism.
But you see, exactly, but I think the challenge here is that both of us share a deep Christian faith. Both of us share a profound commitment to not just our family, but our loved ones. And both of us recognize that when the issues of integrity, honesty, decency, generosity, that just cuts across race, gender, sexual orientation, national identity. Those are just spiritual and moral values. I think the deep disagreement is, and I think Charles Murray and others have pointed this out, that the impact of the market on working and poor parents, no matter who they are, has been devastating. When you've had profits quadrupling at the top and you got wage stagnation for 40 years, how are you going to be able to keep your family together when 2 or 3 of you, when you do work, you still live in poverty? This is where wealth inequality comes in. And see, when you talk about free market capitalism, if we had a free market capitalism, that's one thing. We've got a corporate dominated.
Crony capitalism.
Exactly. It's crony, it's predatory, 1% at the top, no matter what color they are at the top. Even though they're disproportionately vanilla, but you shouldn't have bailed out the banks. We would agree with that. No, absolutely.
We need real capitalism, real free market capitalism, not crony capitalism.
I would just say we need a fair society, whatever it takes.
Right. And
but how do you?
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, brothers? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? We're not going to waste too much time. Welcome, guys. Welcome, guys, to Friday Night Live. Welcome to Friday Night Live. I hope that you brothers are doing well. It is Friday, April the 4th, April the 22nd, 2022. It is April 22nd, 2022. It's almost 10 minutes after 6 p.m. What's going on? What's going on? Good to see you guys. I'm glad that you all are in place for this broadcast. And I hope that you guys are looking forward to a great weekend, guys. And we're not going to waste a whole lot of time. The first part of the broadcast, you heard this exchange between Candace Owens and Professor Cornel West that took place during the Trump era. And it was one of many conversations that Candace Owens has had with people who have a different point of view than her. If you go to my community page, I posted a conversation that she had with Mark Lamont Hill. And Candace Owens, she needs no introduction. Her voice is all over the place. She's a ubiquitous presence on the internet, on the right, among Republicans, and the like. And we're going to talk about her perspective, brothers. We're going to talk about her perspective tonight, and her perspective in relationship to Black men. And look at the question here. Look at the question here. Is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? Is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. What's going on, chat? I see you. I see you, Ron Matthews. What's going on? I see you, Timothy Harden. I see you, Tim Howard. What's going on, Tim Howard, man? Glad you're in the house. Charles Irby, I see you. Golden Child, I see you. Prince Johnny, I see you. Truth the Revelator, I see you. I see all you brothers. Flame O 2.0, Rock One, I see you. I see all you guys here, man. The reason why I decided to do this broadcast is because, number one, I teach religion and politics. My scholarship is in politics. I have spent the bulk of my adult life studying and writing about politics. I published a book 10 years ago on politics. I'm finishing a book right now that deals with politics, religion, and politics. And in that book that I published 10 years ago, and in the book that I'm getting ready to complete right now, it engages a lot of issues and concerns that cut across the political spectrum. These are issues that are not limited to the left, to the right, to the middle. It doesn't matter what your political orientation is. There are some matters that are trans-political. And the issues that I'm dealing with are issues that are relevant to what we call BMI, Black men's independence. And I just have to remind everyone, those of you all who are listening for the very first time, is that Black men's independence means that you have Black men who have political sensibilities. We have political sensibilities that are not beholden to one particular ideology. We have political ideas. We have political ways of thinking that are not captive. They are not. They do not belong to a political party. We are independent. We are independent. And the reason why I'm doing this because of my work in politics and religion. I came on YouTube, guys. I came on YouTube back in 2020, fall of 2020. I came on with a distinct political point of view. And that's when I introduced the notion of BMI, Black Men's Independence, and then BMA, Black Men's Agency, and then BME, Black Men's Empowerment, and most recently BMH, Black Men's Happiness. And when I came on YouTube, it was during the election time between Trump and Biden. I had very strong perspectives on who I thought should not be the president of the United States, who Black men should not support as president. And from my standpoint, and those of you all who have been following me since 2020, and if you're not familiar with that content, you can go back to the archives. You guys go back to my archive, to my earliest videos, my first uploads on YouTube. And I talked about BMI. Okay, I have a video on Killer Mike back in September 2020 when Killer Mike approached the governor of the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp, on behalf of people who were needing help, businesses who were needing help in terms of economic relief. And they will needed COVID help and those things that are related. And in that video and other videos, I talked about the idea of independence that Black men cannot afford. We cannot afford to be beholden to any particular political ideology. We have to engage power where power presents itself. We engage the people who are in power, be they liberal, be they Republican, Democrat, conservative, whatever you want to call it. That's what we do. What's going on, Charles Faulkner? I see you, man. I see you. I see you. I see you, Barry Little. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. 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 There he is. There he is. The American dream, Charles Faulkner. What's going on, man? Ric Flair, the black Ric Flair. But listen, guys, but listen. I've been watching Candace Owens ever since she became public. I've been watching her ever since she first started doing content on YouTube, and she called herself Red Pill Black. She called herself Red Pill Black. That was some time ago, and she was a liberal, and she made a transition from being a liberal to being a political conservative, and she started spewing her conservative perspective on YouTube. And eventually she got picked up by people like Fox News and other people, and she because of her talent, she's a very smart person. She's someone who's a reader, she's a debater, and because of all those things, she gained an audience and she gained some traction. She began to really push back on liberalism, political liberalism, liberalism in relationship to Black America, Black society, liberalism over the last 40 years. If you watch the intro, if you listen to the intro of this broadcast, this was a snippet just of a conversation between Candace Owens and Cornel West, where they talked about her perspective and the kind of tensions that exist. And listen, guys, I've been in this space and in these spaces pertaining to Black men for quite some time now. I first, as a listener, before becoming a content creator, but as a listener, I first entered into these spaces in 2012. And then I began to listen more intently in 2015 when the official Black manosphere really got kicked in, okay? And a lot has been said in our spaces about Black men's condition, politics. We have men, Black men who make content, Black men who are Republicans. We have Black men who call themselves conservatives. We have some Black men who are libertarians. We got a few that might identify with being liberals. Some call themselves Gnostics, and you have Black men who are indifferent. And we have had lots of conversations about the condition of Black America. We have had lots of conversations about family structures, about what's going on with single parent households. We talk all ad nauseum, all right, about the state of Black boys, Black male youth, in terms of their literacy and what have you. We've talked a lot about crime in the Black community. We've talked a lot about the so-called, Pookie and Ray Ray thing, and so-called educated lames and all of that. We have talked about feminism. We've talked about the assault on masculinity. We've talked about the efforts to control, to police, and to basically damn near abolish masculinity in the United States. We've talked about a lot of things that deal with our lives as Black men. We've talked about economics. We have brothers who have given themselves to issues pertaining to capitalism and entrepreneurialism and tech and crypto and all of those things, and self-reliance and being independent and being self-sufficient, guys. We've talked about all of these things, and we continue to talk about these things in this space. And guys, in light of all the stuff that we talk about, in light of all the stuff that we talk about in this space, I find myself listening and being an observer of what's going on among the right. I study the right. I study the conservatives, particularly the Black conservatives. And I have to say this forthrightly, that the Black conservatives are a minority voice, as it should be obvious to you. The Black conservatives are a minority voice. They've always been a minority voice. And what I mean by a minority voice is that they don't typically get the hearing of the majority of Afro-Americans. They don't typically get, their viewpoints don't get the type of exposure that some Black Americans get who call themselves, who are identified as liberals, okay? And this has been the case for quite some time, okay? You have conservatives, and I'm gonna stick with some of the names that are more familiar. You have the people, and I'll go back to the 1990s. You have your people like your Shelby Steele. You have people like a Thomas Sowell. You have people like Walter Williams. You have people like John McWhorter. You have people like Carolyn Swain, Professor Carolyn Swain. You have people like Deborah Dickerson. You have people like Armstrong Williams. You have people like Clarence Thomas. You have people like Condoleezza Rice. Okay, you have a lot of people. You have the late Colin Powell. The late Colin Powell. Yes, he was a political conservative. Okay, you have a lot of people who have represented this type of minority voice. They've been around for a long time, and they're often treated. Thank you, Barry Little. Thank you, Barry Little, my brother, for that contribution, that $10. You have lots of people in that camp whose voices have not had the type of push as other voices, the Obama types, okay, the Michael Eric Dyson types, hell, even the Cornel West types, who is in this conversation with Candace Owens, all right? And so it is a foregone conclusion that liberalism speaks, and liberal politicians, people like Bill Clinton, people like Hillary Clinton, people going way back to Lyndon Baines Johnson. Let's just keep it a buck. Lyndon Baines Johnson, all right, who was the person who really set the tone for the relationship between Black people and liberalism in this country since 1965, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And so the vast majority of Black people have supported, they have co-signed liberal politicians, they have co-signed liberal policies, and they have co-signed them to such a degree and have supported them so immensely that it is often believed that the primary orientation among Afro-Americans is the politically liberal orientation. And that is not the case. Your political conservatives have always been there. They have always been among Black Americans, all right? And I'm going to put this out here, and I'm going to say this to you forthrightly about my own politics. I am independent. I am Black male, Black men's independent when it comes to these things. I don't really particularly care about where you stand in the political spectrum, okay? The only thing that I care about is that you know your politics and that you know why you have your politics. I'm going to say this. I am sensitive. I am sympathetic. I am sympathetic to those viewpoints that do not get the type of representation that the major viewpoint gets. That is, I am sympathetic to conservatives. I am sympathetic to Black conservatives. I am sympathetic to political conservatives. I am not sympathetic to them because I am a Black conservative or that I identify with Black conservatism. I am sympathetic to them because they have a perspective that I believe should be heard and that it should not be demonized. It should not be ridiculed, okay? Tonight we're talking about Candace Owens. And this conversation already, when I put the question out, there was a very interesting response from the brothers, which I'm not, I was not surprised of. And I'm glad that we're getting good responses and good feedback here. It is easy to look at someone, thank you, Charles Faulkner, thank you, my brothers. It is easy to dismiss someone. In our community, we call them Uncle Toms, we call them mammies, we call them coons, we call them all sorts of names. It's easy to do that. We call them bed wenches. We have all sorts of names for people who we think are, who we perceived, all right, who are framed as being against the best interests of Black people. And I understand it. I understand where it comes from. Are there traitors? Yes, there are. Are there sellouts? Yes, there are. Are there turncoats? Yes, there are. There are people like that in every population, in every single group. It's not just limited to Black America. But here's the thing, guys. I'm a firm believer in debate. I'm a firm believer in ideas. I embrace free speech. I embrace academic freedom. I embrace the contestation of perspectives. Thank you, Charles Faulkner. You're right. Black people have supported these fundamental ideas, even to their detriment. Yes. Candace Owens is an interesting person because I'm going to say this, guys. There's a lot that Candace Owens has said, and there's a lot that Candace Owens has written. This is her book, her most recent book right here. There's a lot that Candace Owens has written and has said in public and on these podcasts and on YouTube and on Fox News and everything that is not radically far removed. It is not radically far removed from the stuff that we talk about in our Black men space. Not radically far. Not far. Okay? There are issues. And when you listen to her and you listen to her carefully and you listen to what is said in these spaces, especially when it comes down to the criticisms that are rendered towards the dominant orientation that Black people have, you have to sit back and you have to give pause to what this person is saying, namely Candace Owens, in relationship to this political liberal orientation. And I'm going to say this, guys, I'm a staunch critic of liberals. I'm a staunch critic of liberalism, okay? And I have to say this over and over again to clarify my perspective. Me being a staunch critic of liberals and liberalism does not mean that I am a right-wing person. It does not mean that I identify with political conservatism. I'm kind of like Cornel West. You see Cornel West in that conversation? Candace Owens sits down with Cornel West, and they have differences in their perspectives, but there are points where they converge. And where are the points where Candace Owens and Cornel West converged? They came to an agreement when it came down to the Democratic Party. They came to an agreement when it came down to liberalism. They came to an agreement when it came down to Black people's, Black Americans' affiliation, their voting patterns with respect to Democrats, all right? From Lyndon Baines Johnson to Bill Clinton to Barack Obama to Joe Biden. Both Candace Owens and Cornel West agree that the Democratic Party is a problem, that liberalism is a problem. They come at the Democratic Party from different angles, but both of them have serious critiques of the Democratic Party. They both agree, they both think, and I agree with them, that the Democratic Party is not fundamentally interested in the positive development of Black people in America, that Black people in America, in their affiliations with the Democratic Party, are right now in a holding place. They're being held hostage. Black people are being held hostage. And Candace Owens critiques this hostage position that Black people find themselves in. And Cornel West has done it too. Cornel West is a left-wing socialist. He is a democratic socialist. So his critique is a critique of the Democratic Party and its relationship to capitalism, its negative relationship to capitalism. All right. So y'all know the socialists. The socialists are fundamentally critical of capitalism. They're always looking for redistribution. And Cornel West thinks that the Democratic Party does not deal seriously with the need to equalize things when it comes down to wealth, income. It is not serious about leveling things in terms of economic and racial inequality. Candace Owens comes from a different perspective. She comes from a different angle. And what is her angle? That the Democratic Party is not sufficiently concerned with the economic enfranchise of Black Americans. It is not concerned with Black people having wealth, Black people having money, Black people actually having power, Black people actually being in a position to determine their destinies. Okay, she is concerned with the government regulations or the excessive regulatory powers of the government. She is one of these people, and I have to say, I agree with her on here. I agree with Candace Owens that there is too much government when you have excessive regulation, and that the markets, in her estimation, are overregulated. We need to open up some things so that we can create more freedom in terms of entrepreneurship, people creating businesses and what have you, and people being supported in enterprises. Okay, and so Candace Owens comes from a pro-capitalist perspective. She comes from a pro-capitalist perspective, and she believes in less. If it's not less government, it's no government. Less government or no government. Okay. Cornel West doesn't quite go there with her. He thinks that the government needs to be involved. You need government activity to hold the greed of capitalists in bay, to keep greed in check. Okay. Candace Owens is a different has a different orientation altogether. Now, what do we do? What do we do? I asked the question of an ally. I asked you guys the question of an ally. How do you assess an ally? How do you assess an ally? And I want to venture this to you guys. I want to say that an ally, somebody who is an ally, is somebody who is not in opposition to your best interests. I'm going to say that an ally is the opposite of an enemy. An ally is somebody who does not stand in your way. Okay? An ally is not working against you. An ally is not someone who is constantly trying to exploit you, to take advantage of you. An ally is not someone who is constantly seeking to undermine you. Okay? And so here's the thing. A lot of Black people see these political liberals. They see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. When they voted for them, they imagined them as allies. They imagined them. And y'all know what happened in the 2020 election. All right. Much was made when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, entered into the Oval Office. Much was made about the vote, particularly Black women's vote. Okay, even though Black men participated and voted as well, much was made about the Black woman's vote. All right, and how Black women saved democracy, how they saved democracy. And there was an assumption that was made when they voted for Biden and Harris, that once Biden and Harris got into office, that they would reward those who have been faithful voters. Now, I want you to remember when Joe Biden was debating Donald Trump, when they got towards the end of the election cycle, when close to November 4th, when it was time to vote, I want you to remember that Joe Biden and Donald Trump were going back and forth over the Black male vote and the Black male condition. If you remember, we've talked about this, guys. And I want you to remember that Donald Trump had issued an executive order. He had an executive order that was put in place to create a commission to study the condition of Black men and boys in the United States. All right, this is way before he left office. And Joe Biden saw that Donald Trump was making inroads into the Black male population. And what had happened, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they came back and they started talking about Black men, and they started talking about economic development with Black men. And they proposed this plan to help to enfranchise Black men in America. Well, fast forward to after the election, fast forward 6 months, fast forward 8 months after Biden and Harris are in office, president and vice president, everything that they said that they would do with respect to the Black male population did not get done. They did not act on it was called the Lift Every Voice plan. And here we are, we're close to 2 years. We're close to 2 years since Biden has been in office. Okay, all right. And very little has been directed, with the exception. and I really don't want to include this, but I'm going to put this out there. Okay, you got Ketanji Brown Jackson. You got Ketanji Brown Jackson. Okay, Ketanji Brown. Very little has been done by the Biden White House that specifically targets using the Congress, using the powers of the presidency. Very little has been done that targets Afro-Americans in this country, okay? And so Black Americans have been used because right now, Biden has he supported LGBTQ interests, he supported trans interests, he supported immigrants, he supported Asian interests, okay? The multicultural coalition, everybody in the multicultural, in the diverse coalition, with the exception of Black people, have been addressed by the Biden presidency, okay? So when it comes down to what an ally is, guys, an ally does not manipulate and use you. And what we have seen consistently over and over again, guys, what we have seen consistently, thank you for that, Brother Reality, good to see you. You guys, you all can support the stream. This is Friday Night Live. The question is Candace Owens an ally? Is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? That is the question. Is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? And so here we are, guys. BMI, y'all also support us. BMI, Cash App, $ BMI 3000, Cash App, $ BMI 3000, Cash App, $ BMI 3000. 3000. And guys, the thing is that Black Americans have been manipulated and used to advance the interests of other people. And here's the thing. So it's very difficult for me, in my eye, it's very difficult for me to see liberals, particularly political liberals, as true allies of Afro-Americans. They cannot be true allies, all right? You have all these people, it doesn't care how diverse they are, how many women are part of the group, how many LGBTQ people are there, or what have you, and how much they talk about virtue and equality and equity and all of that, all right? If you don't put up, if you are unable to, if you do not practice what you preach, if you don't live out what it is that you say that you are, it is very difficult to see you as an ally. And here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. And I'm not going to come out and say, here's the thing. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to think about her talking points. And I want you to think about what she says. I want you to think about what she says. And Candace Owens is very, very, she's very, very clear here, guys. She's very, very clear here. In the first chapter, The first chapter of her book, she gets it from Trump. Yep, remember Trump. Remember Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he asked that question. He asked the question when he was running for the presidency in 2016 to Black Americans, what do you have to lose? Remember that question? What do you have to lose? Okay? You look at Baltimore, you look at Harlem, you look at Queens, you look at Liberty City, you look at Overtown, you look at Oakland, okay? You look at Compton, you look at Watts, you look at Detroit, you look at Chicago, you look at St. Louis, okay? All right, you look at New Orleans, you look at all these cities, okay? I'm in North Carolina, all right? There are parts of North Carolina that are in bad shape, okay? So we got the cities and we got the rural areas. And the question he asked, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Your so-called allies have not done anything for you over the last 60 some odd years. And that's the questions. What do you have to lose? And Candace Owens, she goes back. Candace Owens, and she's not the first one to do this. And here's what happens. And the conservatives, I'm going to say this, the conservatives are not wrong in doing this. The conservatives, the Black conservatives are correct. Black conservatives, when Black conservatives tell you that Black Americans traditionally, historically, have not been Democrats or did not support the Democratic Party historically. And when I say historically, in terms of Black people's enslavement and post-enslavement, they are absolutely correct. That when you go back to Abraham Lincoln, when you look at the politicians, the Union people who were anti-slavery, they were Republicans. And this is a conservative narrative, which is true. It is true that Black Americans for a very long time, because the Republicans, they supported Reconstruction. They supported anti-slavery efforts. They supported a lot of things, okay? And many Black Americans were Republican going into the 20th century up until FDR, Frank Delano Roosevelt. And it was a Roosevelt that you began to see some shifts. You saw the shift. Black people there were still Black folks voting Republican. There were Republican presidents who were still friendly to Black people. Truman was a Republican president who was friendly to Black people. Eisenhower was a Republican president who was friendly to Black people, okay? So what happens, guys, is that Black people don't become hardcore Democrats. Some people put it, they trace it back to FDR with the New Deal, okay? But the fact of the matter is that Black people really did not become hardcore Democrats until the 1960s with Lyndon B. Johnson and his push for civil rights, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1965, and the push towards what he called was the Great Society with all of its social programs and everything, okay? Now, Candace Owens outlines, and this book is written for lay people, it is written for regular people. She outlines this history, and she's not the first person to do this, okay? And I want you to note that this is a history that liberals, Black liberals in particular, don't talk about. It's a history that Black liberals walk away from, most of them, and a lot of Black leftists. They don't talk about this. They don't talk about the underside, because what she's talking about here are the underside, the underside rather of the Great Society programs, okay? All right? We're talking about everything that came out, what was once AFDC, all right? We're talking about it was once called Aid for Families with Dependent Children, all right? It was later changed to TANF, Okay, temporary assistance for needy families. That was the name that it became much later on. All right, you're talking about food stamps. You're talking about Head Start. You're talking about also Job Corps, all sorts of programs that were intended, so-called, to eliminate poverty in the United States. Government-controlled programs that were not controlled by Black people, nor the people who were the primary recipients of that program. And yes, I must say it, my guys, that Black people were not the only people who benefited from those programs. But what is the point? The point that she's made here, and this is a point that liberals, that Black liberals do not want to address this. That these programs had unintended consequences. So we're talking about the welfare state. We're talking about family courts. One thing that she doesn't talk about in her book, she doesn't talk about the criminal justice system. So she doesn't talk about mass incarceration. She doesn't talk about the over policing of Black communities and the over incarceration of Black men. But that very much is a part of that whole history. But the one thing that she does point to is the fact that 60 some odd years after the onset of those Great Society programs, that the vast majority of Black Americans, the majority now, not the minority, not the 30%, not the middle class, not the people who are up middle class. Okay, I'm among the upper and the middle upper class strata of Black America. She's not talking about me right now, but she's talking about your lower income Blacks. She's talking about your working class Blacks. She's talking about your lower middle class Blacks, people who have wage work, people who work 9-to-5 jobs, people who have to work 2 and 3 jobs and what have you. Okay, and people who are also dependent upon government assistance. Okay, and we all are familiar with the narrative. That that these and she's not the only person to have done this. That these big government programs, all right, incentivized single parent households. These programs paid people to not work. Okay, they paid people in many respects to not look for jobs, and it was only until the 1990s under Bill Clinton, when under the pressure of Republican politicians and voters and the like, that there was this effort to amend welfare. When you had the welfare reform and welfare provisions mandated that women worked. Okay, that you had to work, you had to get a job, or you had to be in school in order to maintain certain levels of aid and what have you. And many of that was contingent upon the state that you lived in. There were different rules for different states, okay, because welfare, a lot of that stuff is managed by the state. But here's the point, guys. Here's the point. She talks about the consequences of it. She's talking about the consequences of it. And when you look at Baltimore, and we look at what happened over the course of the last 10 years with Black Lives Matter, one thing that we learned, one thing that the BLM, that the whole movement, the whole, anti-racist movements of the last 10 years, if there's anything that those movements have taught us, from Trayvon Martin to Jordan Davis, to Tamir Rice, to Michael Brown, all the way up to Freddie Gray, all the way up to George Floyd. All right. If there's anything that, and even I'm gonna put the women, let's throw women in there. Breonna Taylor. If anything, if we've learned anything, we've learned the extent to which Black America is underdeveloped. We have learned the extent to which Black people, large sectors of Black America, are massively underdeveloped. That we have, and I wrote about this 10 years ago. I wrote about this 10 years ago. Y'all get the likes up. We've got 76 people who are watching. Y'all get the likes up, get the likes up, get the likes up. I wrote my book 10 years ago. And in my book 10 years ago that I wrote, and the book is called Democracy in 21st Century America, Race, Class, Religion, and Region, I talked about this massive underdevelopment, and I called this underdevelopment, I called it Third World America. I called it Third World America. And when I wrote my book over 10 years ago, I was looking at the South. I was living in South Carolina at the time, and I was looking at cities in South Carolina such as Orangeburg and Columbia and Bamberg. I was also looking at Louisiana. I was looking at New Orleans. I was looking at St. Charles. I was looking at Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay, all right. There are parts of the South that are no different. You guys already know this, and it's not just a Southern thing. But I was working on the South. There are parts of Black society that look like a third world country. Okay, it looks like somebody done dropped a nuclear bomb on Black people. Okay, Hiroshima. And so, that's why when Donald Trump, if you remember Donald Trump, he started talking about shitholes. Remember that? Y'all remember that Donald Trump started talking about shitholes? Y'all remember that Donald Trump was talking about shitholes and all over the world and stuff like that. And people, the mass media, they took offense to it and everything like that. I knew what Donald Trump was talking about. I knew exactly what he was talking about. And you don't have to go across the Atlantic, across the Pacific to find a so-called shithole. You can find them right here in the United States of America. And unfortunately, a lot of those quote-unquote shitholes that exist in the United States are populated with large numbers of Black people. So when he raised the question, what do you have to lose? That was a poignant question. That was a poignant question. What do you have to lose? Okay. And the thing is, see, Candace Owens, what she has done is that she's forcing many of these issues into the public domain in a way that you and I cannot. You and I cannot, okay? You don't have a whole lot of Black men. Here's the deal. Here's the thing, guys. You don't have Black men who are talking about the breakdown of families, the fragmentation of families in the political domain, in the world of politics, okay? In the manner that this person is, okay? She's testified before Congress. We've talked about it in our space. She's talked about California. BGS has done this. Dr. T.S. Johnson has done this. They have done live streams. They have done pre-recorded videos on test scores, the test scores of Black boys, the test scores of fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, third graders, the abysmal numbers when it comes down to reading, math, and science. We've done that stuff. We've done that stuff here in our space, okay? But there's nobody doing that. There's nobody doing that among the Democrats. There's nobody doing that on MSNBC. There's nobody doing that on CNN, okay? But I find it interesting. That this person who is a regularly featured, she's a regularly featured guest on Fox News. This person regularly She regularly talks about the condition of Black boys. She regularly talks about Black boys and underachievement, Black boys and abysmal graduation rates, okay? And the consequences and its implications economically for Black communities, but not only Black communities, but for the rest of our society. Who in the public sphere? Who in the public sphere is talking about the fragmentation of Black families? So you find it among the right. And here's the thing. The political right has no problem with talking about families. They have no problem with talking about nuclear families. They have no problem with talking about intact families. They have no problem with talking about fathers in homes, fathers nurturing children. The political right, they do not pathologize or demonize masculinity on the right. And she is one person who has a voice, who deals forthrightly with these issues of family, masculinity, child raising, so on and so forth. And you don't have anyone else who is her equivalent. Okay? You don't have her equivalent on the left or among the liberals. Now, last night, here's the thing, guys. Last night, guys, I posted a debate. I posted a debate, or you can call it a conversation that she had with Mark Lamont Hill. Mark Lamont Hill, who is on the left. She had a debate with Hill. They had a debate. It's an hour-long debate. If you guys have not seen that debate, y'all go check out that debate. And Mark Lamont Hill is one of the few people on the left who is aware. He is aware of the negative impact of the welfare state. He is aware of the negative impact of the criminal justice system. He's written about the negative impact of the welfare state and the criminal justice system. Okay? However, the negative impact of the welfare state on Black society and the criminal justice system is not a core feature of his public advocacy. When you see Mark Lamont Hill, all right, when he was on the Black News Network, or the Black News Channel, BNC, which just went out of business, all right, that was not the core of what he did, okay? When he was on the Huffington Post, if you saw him on CNN, if you saw him on MSNBC or anything, those things were not the core of what he advocated about. Okay, when you look at Mark Lamont Hill, who's a tenured professor, University of Pennsylvania, when he talks, he's always talking about LGBTQ issues. He's talking about LGBTQ issues, LGBTQ plus. He's talking about feminist stuff. All right, that's his thing. That's his bread and butter. That's his stick. Okay. Now, to his credit, you guys, to his credit, Mark Lamont Hill does entertain other perspectives. But the point I'm trying to make with you guys, is that you don't have people among these liberals. These liberals are not talking about the fragmentation that has taken place among Black people over the last 60 years. And they are not trying to propose any real substantive solutions to the fragmentation that has happened over the last 60 years. They are unwilling to admit that too much government has harmed Black Americans, and they're unwilling to engage in a politics that promotes less government, that you remove. You don't need more government, you need less government. So what I'm saying is that this person in particular, there are aspects of her perspective that float, that resonate with the space that we're in. Y'all get the likes up, y'all share, y'all subscribe. You all share and you subscribe. Y'all support the stream. Cash App $BMI. Cash App $BMI. Y'all support the stream. Okay. Thank you, BGS. Y'all support the stream. We are talking about Candace Owens. Is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? Can you say that she is your enemy if she is anti-male? If she is not, rather, can you say that she is your enemy if she is not anti-Black male? When it comes down to the family. Now, there are some problematic aspects of her perspective that we're gonna address. Okay, there's some problematic aspects, but right now I'm just talking about the family. I'm talking about Black boys. I'm talking about the destruction of families among many Black folks that have occurred under liberal policies. Okay, and I think that she is right about that. I think that at this moment, and she has her movement. The book is called Blackout, 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 Blackout. And her movement is called Blexit. Which is a spinoff or it's a playoff of Brexit. You remember Brexit when the United Kingdom broke away from the European Union back in 2016? The United Kingdom broke away from the European Union. It no longer wanted to be a part of the European Union. So Brexit is about Black people departing, leaving the Democratic Party, what she calls the Democratic Plantation, and she's not the first person to call it that. All sorts of people call it the Democratic Plantation. And so when it comes to the family, there's a problem. Now, let's talk about men, Black men. Let's talk about Black men. And let's talk about feminism. And let's talk about toxic masculinity. And let's talk about the efforts to restructure, reshape, and even abolish masculinity in the United States of America, which is a very, very real thing. I don't have to tell you guys because in our space, we deal with that. We deal with that. And Candace Owens has a chapter on feminism here. Candace Owens is not a feminist. She doesn't claim feminism. She is very resistant of feminists who think that she ought to be a feminist. She is very resistant to feminists who think that she owes feminism her life because they think that were it not for feminism, she would not be who she is or what have you. She takes exception to that. But in this book right here, she talks about some of the problems. She talks about the full-blown assault on masculinity, the full-blown assault on heterosexual masculinity in the United States. And in this chapter that she has on feminism, she talks about Me Too. She talks about the excesses of Me Too. She talks about the problem of the whole idea of believe women. And lo and behold, Candace Owens invokes, when she talks about feminism and she talks about Me Too and she talks about the excesses of these expressions of feminism, third wave feminism, second wave, whatever you want to call them, Candace Owens invokes Emmett Till. Candace Owens in the book right there, she talks about how we're in a moment right now, this believe her moment. And it should not be surprising to you that it's eerily reminiscent of what happened to Emmett Till, where we are living in an age of the mob, where anybody can say anything to you, any woman can say anything about any man, any egregious thing in terms of violence and in terms of misconduct, okay? And what this person can say to you, if it is not checked, if it is unregulated, if it is not scrutinized, if it is not tested by law, if it is not managed and processed through court procedures, it will result in the same thing that happened, decades ago with Emmett Till. Okay, we're talking about mob justice. We're talking about vigilante justice, just based on accusation. Okay, and this is dangerous. We are setting a dangerous precedent here, and she is highly, highly critical of where we are in terms of relationships between men and women. The clip that I played at the beginning of this broadcast, the clip that I played, guys, the clip that I played early when she was talking to Cornel West, they had a conversation. Candace Owens had a conversation. She was talking to Cornel West with Gavin. The guy's name is Gavin McGinnis, and they were talking about Me Too, and they were talking about relationships between men and women, and how we're in a place right now where you have all of these artificial rules that have now been set into motion, that men are on edge and that men are cautious in terms of engagement with women. All right. They acknowledge that, yes, men need to be respectful of women's spaces and bodies and stuff like that. We understand that. No one has a problem with that. No one has tried to violate anybody. But the problem arises, my guys, when any interaction between a man and a woman can be criminalized. Okay, you're talking about a man looking at a woman. You're talking about a man complimenting a woman. Okay, you're talking about what can even happen if a man engages in consensual sexual relations with a woman. You go to bed with someone, you have consensual relations with that person, and then the next day the person wakes up and regrets having consensual relations with you, and that person can say that she was violated. She can retroactively revoke consent. Okay, so those are real things. Those are real things. And we have gone overboard. We have gone overboard in terms of over policing, over regulating, okay, the interactions between men and women. Okay, do we need safe protections? Do we need safe boundaries? Yes, we do. You understand what I'm saying? But human beings need to be, treated as adults. Adults need adults adults need to be responsible for adult behavior, adult actions rather. Okay, need to be responsible. Okay, thank you, Abuki. Good to see you, my brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. But she goes in. Candace Owens goes in on. She goes in on feminism. She's not a feminist. And she even goes even further in terms of its relationship to the LGBTQ movement and everything, and the abolition of masculinity. All right. And talks about it. And again, she's not the first person to do this. And here's the thing: she talks about fatherhood. That we are walking in dangerous territory. We are walking in dangerous territory when we erase gender roles to such a degree, all right, that nothing is recognizable, okay, or that things disappear, that you erase the whole idea of a father. And here's the thing, and she says this in her book, and she is convinced, and I'm with her. that this fundamental breakdown in this family, in this so-called nuclear family in the West, is tied to the erasure of the father. And that once you completely eliminate the father from the family unit, eventually the unit is going to collapse. We've already seen this. But as long as you continue to erode the whole idea of fatherhood, we're going to continue to see further decline in communities and in society writ at large. Now, here's the problem. Here's the thing. So Candace Owens says some very good things about masculinity. She's not a proponent. She's a critic of toxic masculinity. When I say a critic of toxic masculinity, that is, she is critical of the idea. She is critical of the idea of toxic masculinity, which is a good thing. But there's another side of Candace Owens that we have to kind of bracket, and we got to put this thing in check when it comes down to men, particularly Black men. There are many aspects of Candace Owens that affirm Black men in terms of the development of Black men. She supports education. She supports the family, the traditional family, the nuclear family, for those who are going down that road and what have you. She supports economic development and what have you. She thinks that there should be less government, and I agree. We need less government. Get rid of the new Jim Crow was about over government. Okay, the welfare state. She doesn't talk about family courts too much, but the family courts is too big. The family court system is too big. The welfare system is too big. The criminal justice system is too big. You need to scale all these things back. All these things need to be scaled back. In her perspective, to the degree that she promotes that, she's cool. She cool. Now, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Candace Owens is a mixed bag. Candace Owens is a mixed bag when it comes down to Black Lives Matter. She's a mixed bag. And why do I say that she's a mixed bag when it comes down to Black Lives Matter? I say she's a mixed bag, guys, because Candace Owens has been one of these conservative voices who has been critical of protest activity among Black people that deal with the relationship between Black people, particularly Black men, and the police. So she's been very, very critical of police killings. That is, Black men being killed by police and then they're being outraged at that. Candace Owens is critical of it because she thinks that Black people are not sufficiently outraged at what we call Black on Black crime or Black on Black violence, what we call proxy violence, when Black people kill other Black people, especially when Black men kill other Black men. There isn't sufficient outrage, and you all saw that. Now, when George Floyd was murdered, and we saw that, and we saw it on tape, everybody saw it all across the world, and people responded to it. George Floyd's murder on tape by that Minneapolis police officer was a clear illustration of the problematic relationship that Black men have had with the police historically in this country. That was a clear case. No one could deny, even Donald Trump. Donald Trump saw that video. Even Donald Trump. He saw that what happened in that instance with George Floyd was horrendous and horrific. And it did speak volumes to what has been happening in this country. Candace Owens, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but go back to the video I post. Candace Owens defamed the character of George Floyd. Candace Owens, and she's done this unapologetically. She's honest about this. Because George Floyd had been a black man who has spent the bulk of his life in and out of jail, in and out of prison. George Floyd had a substance abuse problem. George Floyd lived a tumultuous life, guys. George Floyd lived a tumultuous life. He lived a hard life. George Floyd and I, me and this guy are the same age. Okay, I'm a number of months younger than him. Same age. When I saw George Floyd get killed, I'm like, oh my God, he was 6'3" or something. I'm 6'1", over 200 pounds. He was over 200 pounds. I saw that video. I said, that could have been me. Candace Owens made an argument which essentially said that George Floyd's killing was justified, that it was justified by the mere fact that he was someone who had been engaged in criminality. And this is the problem, that he had a criminal past. And because he had a criminal past, we cannot uncritically accept the idea that he was a victim of police violence. In other words, there was something that he had done to invoke that interaction between he and Derek Chauvin. And this, guys, this is the problematic aspect of Candace Owens right here. This is the problematic aspect of Candace Owens. This is the part of Candace Owens. This is the part of Candace Owens that not only squares her with extreme elements on the right. Not only that, and I said this publicly when I was on Facebook back in 2020 when this happened, she expressed a perspective that is not only popular on the right when it comes down to black men who have had trouble with the law, who have been killed by police, okay? Because, we've had a number of guys who were killed by police who had run-ins with the law, okay? All right, Alton Sterling had run-ins with the law, and he had an encounter with the police, which ended in his life being taken away from him. Candace Owens is not only squared with the right, but she is also in line with those haters on the left, those haters among the liberals, particularly those haters of black men who see black men as inherently criminal. It allies her with some feminists. It allies her with those hateful, man-hating feminists that I have talked about on my page, okay? Those man-hating BLM feminists, queer feminists in particular, who hate black men, who believe that black men deserve to die, okay? All right? And these people are positioned on the left. So when it came down, when it comes down to black men and police violence, when it comes down to black men and police violence, police killing black men, I got to say no, Candace Owens, you're not an advocate. You're not an ally. You're not an ally. When it comes down to black men being killed by the police, nothing justifies murder. Okay? George Floyd's, thank you, Kenneth Williams. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. Thank you for that super sticker, man. Kenneth Williams, thank you for that. Nothing justified the murder of George Floyd. I don't care how many times he went to prison. What happened to him was horrific. It was brutal. He was killed over a counterfeit $20 bill. Nothing justifies that. Nothing justifies that. Okay? All right? And I can bring in Adolph Reed, the political scientist, and just say, yeah, if you have black men who are getting killed by the cops, and these men happen to be men who've been in and out of jail, or these men who have criminal records or what have you, that should not be surprising if you're dealing with men who are in a poor, who are in an impoverished situation. You are dealing with men who are living in third world conditions. Men who, it's not surprising when they're unemployed. It's not surprising when they're homeless. Okay? And these men are targeted for disposability. These police officers in these all black contexts and communities, they're not fundamentally dealing with upper middle class people. They're dealing with lower class black people who are on the margins of society. And yes, a lot of these lower class black people have had interactions with the criminal justice system. So, because somebody has a criminal record doesn't mean that they deserve to die. This is the problem. So Candace Owens, if you're watching this, we don't agree on this. We don't agree on this right here. And when she came out and she lambasted, she did a video. Candace Owens did a video that got millions and millions of views. Her video went viral on George Floyd, and it was an assassination. She assassinated the man's character, called him a criminal, and basically said that what happened to him was deserving. He didn't deserve to live. He deserved to die. She was wrong for that. So we can't support that. I don't support that. Now, what's going on, brothers? Now, here's the thing. Green Gorilla is in the house. What's going on, GG? What's going on, my brother, man? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you, man. Good to see you, my brother. You know, I might drop the link tonight. If you, I don't want to disturb you. You might be on vacation, brother. But if I drop the link, you're more than happy to join. Okay. Listen, guys. Listen. What was I saying? Yes, Candace Owens. We don't agree that police killings, there's no justification for no police killings. I don't care how many times a person has been in and out of jail. You don't justify it if he wasn't attacked. What happened to George Floyd was brutal murder. It was brutal murder. Now, here's one thing that I think that she's right. Here's one area of violence where I think she is right. What we call so-called black on black violence. Black on black violence. I don't like it. And I'm glad Gigi is here. We have to stop talking. We have to stop calling it black on black violence. All right. We can call it proxy violence or whatever. Or we have to stop calling it black on black crime. We know why. The black nationalists created that construct back in the late 60s, early 70s. And the reason why I say that we need to be careful about calling it black on black, because it localizes crime, and it gives the impression that this type of crime is just limited to black people, okay? And that it has some type of special, unique, horrific character to it. Now, I think, and here's where the conservatives, here's why I think the conservatives are right. This is where the conservatives are right. That there should be outrage. There should be more outrage among black people when it comes down to murders, homicides within black society, homicides. Now, I think I think that they're wrong. I think that the conservatives are wrong when they suggest that Black people are not outraged. I think that they're wrong by that. So Candace Owens, so you have people like Candace Owens, and I'll give you another conservative. You have Glenn Lowry, the professor of economics. Glenn Lowry teaches at Brown University, professor of economics, and he has been very vocal about homicide in Black communities, okay? Homicide, Black people killing each other and what have you. And he's talked about it. And he has his own podcast called The Glenn Show. And there's also John McWhorter who talks about this stuff as well. And sometimes when they talk as though Black people had just been sitting on the sidelines and not been saying anything about the violence that takes place among Black people, whether it's Black men killing other Black men, whether it's Black men engaging in violence towards Black women, or Black women engaging in violence towards Black men, or Black women killing other Black women. Let me say it again. Black men killing other Black men killing Black women or rendering violence towards Black women, or Black women engaging in violence towards Black men, even killing Black men, okay? And Black women engaging in violence and even killing other Black women. I think that we have Black people who talk about this stuff, but it is not a mainstream narrative. It is not a mainstream narrative. The dominant narrative that you get when it comes down to this violence, and Green Gorilla and everybody else can attest to this, it is the Black violence towards Black men's violence towards other Black men. And then there's also, that's kind of the dominant, that we talk about Black on Black violence. And then with the feminists come in and they politicize violence against Black women, Black men engaging in violence towards Black women. But the reality is that Black people, and Cornel West in their interview talks about this, is that Black people have been dealing with these issues. They have been dealing with these issues, okay? They have been dealing with these issues, okay? James Foreman Jr., I want you to get this name. James Foreman Jr. is the son of James Foreman Sr., who ran the Congress of Racial Equality. James Foreman Jr. wrote a Pulitzer Prize-winning book called Locking Up Our Own. There's a book called Locking Up Our Own. The book won a Pulitzer. Thank you, Doberman, for that. It won a Pulitzer Prize. He's a lawyer. He's a defense attorney. And basically, the book is about how Black people supported the crime policies of the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. That's what locking up our own is all about. Is that Black people supported criminal policies from the 70s up until the Clinton era. And that the Congressional Black Caucus, they supported all that stuff. So Black people have been pushing and engaging in what we call, outrage in terms of Black on Black crime. The only problem is that we have not resolved it. There is no resolution. But here's the thing that Cornel West said. This is a very important insight in his conversation with Candace Owens. He says, the one reason why you don't get a lot of information, media information about so-called Black on Black crime is because there's a concerted effort in the media to not deal with quote unquote Black on Black crime. Okay? That is the outrage over it. That is Black people actively doing something to address homicide in Black communities. That CNN, MSNBC, and these other stations, and I would include Fox News to a degree. These stations will not show stories. They will not do narratives where you have Black people who are out on the front lines addressing violence in Black spaces. And the reason why, and Cornel West says this, and I agree with him, the reason why they don't show that stuff is because it would depict Black people in an empowered manner. It would depict Black people as empowered agents, that Black people are not just sitting on the sidelines allowing stuff to happen to them, that Black people are actively fighting these issues in their communities. It gives you a different picture, and it removes the narrative. It removes the narrative of police killings alone, okay? Police killings alone, which is a liberal narrative, which is a narrative that liberals and leftists exploit, they take advantage of. And Candace Owens is correct. They don't want to fix it. They don't want to resolve it. They just want to continue to exploit it. That's it. So I think she's right when it comes down to us addressing violence. And that's what we're doing, guys. That is what we are doing. We are addressing violence. When you see Dr. Johnson doing his honest report, okay, or you see Green Gorilla, when Green Gorilla or Dr. Johnson, I don't do a lot of violent stuff on my platform. I don't do a lot of DV stuff on my platform. I'm concerned about it, but I don't do a lot of it. But when you talk about proxy violence, that work is being done. When we talk about proxy violence, violence in the community, okay, among Black people and what have you, and the reality is that these are hard issues to tackle, and a lot of folks, particularly in our communities, don't want to deal with many of the issues that contribute to the violence. And beyond the community, the larger society, the institutions, the governments, the capitalists, they don't want to deal with the ecology of violence, because violence doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. But this is the work that we do. Now, so Candace Owens, I think that she's right. I think that she is right when she says that we need to continue to address violence that has nothing to do with police. I think she's right. But I think that we have to unearth, we have to unpack it. What we do right here is to unpack the violence, the nature of violence, and why violence is happening in our communities. Why Black men, and I'm serious about this, why we Black men are killing each other. We have ideas, we have theories. Why Black women are killing other Black women. Why Black women are killing Black men. Why Black men are killing Black women. You understand what I'm saying? Why violence is happening. Oh my God, more importantly, I can't forget this. Why violence is happening to Black children. Violence is happening to Black children. Violence is happening to Black youth. We have to unpack all the layers of that. So yeah, we got to deal with some hard issues. And the reality is, and she's absolutely right, that these Democrats, the liberals, they don't want to deal with these hard issues. Now, where else is she right when it comes down to these protest movements that we've seen over the last 10 years? The last 10 years of protest. And she was talking with Mark Lamont Hill in that debate. In the debate with Mark Lamont Hill. Candace Owens sees what we see. When Candace Owens looks at BLM, when she looks at BLM, she sees what we see. She sees what we see, especially BLM, the national organization. And what is it that we see, that she sees? She sees that the BLM movement is a movement that is concerned primarily with the queer, feminists, and the trans people. that the queer, feminists, and the trans people are at the center of the BLM movement, particularly in terms of its organization. And she sees what we have seen, that the BLM movement has used the deaths of Black men over the last 10 years to generate money, to get money from rich white liberals in order to transfer that money to gay and lesbian, queer, transgender interests, and to also enrich themselves. You know, the mansions, we're gonna buy the mansions. And to not take the money that they receive, $100 million, $100 million, and apply them to the very, very communities where these deaths of Black men and boys, and even some women, where the deaths of Black people are taking place. She sees what we see. She sees the BLM people as fraudulent. Fraudulent. So we have an agreement there. We agree. We agree. And I'm going to say this, guys. Let me just say this. Let me just say this. I'm going to say this. Do you know who exposed? Do you know who initially, the folks who initially took the veil off BLM? The people who initially took the veil off BLM were the people on the right. The people on the right. It was the political right. They were the ones who scrutinized BLM initially. The people on the right, they scrutinized their mission statements. When the BLM were public and saying that they were Marxists, you know, the people on the right, they're not Marxists, they're pro-capitalist. When the people on the right saw their mission statement, and the mission statement said that we are trying to destroy, that we are intent on dismantling the nuclear family, you can believe, you can only imagine what the white people on the right, you can only imagine how and why they responded in the way in which they did. And then when they start talking about Marxism, and they start doubling down on being trained Marxist, activists, and these people are very, very leery, and they have all kinds of anxieties about Marxism and communism and all types of mythological beliefs about, some communist order taking over the United States. These people believe that Barack Obama was a socialist. They believe he was a communist. Okay, so they're the ones who leveled the initial critique of BLM. And then much later, you had a liberal leftist writer. He came along, and you all can look it up. A liberal leftist writer wrote a long piece in the New Yorker magazine on BLM and its financial situation. And that was right before the 10th year that commemorated the death of Trayvon Martin. So whether they know it or not, these people were doing us a service. I'm not on the right. I'm not a political conservative. But these people were doing us a service because, thank you, Ebony J. Ebony J says from Detroit, thank you for 999. The crime in our community is out of desperation. Everyone is depressed, stressed out, limited. Single mothers have or don't have or want the father support. Outside of downtown, yes, it is indeed a third world. It is a third world out there. Thank you for that. Thank you for that support. They were exposed. You don't have critics. You don't have critics. The liberals, see Mark Lamont Hill. She put Candace Owens put Mark Lamont Hill in a corner. She put him in the corner. Mark Lamont Hill could not answer Candace Owens' criticisms of BLM. Every criticism that she rendered. And he was in a rock in a hard place. And I suspect that he conceded the criticism, but he couldn't agree with her in public because it would violate or it would rub his constituency the wrong way. And so this is the problem. The liberals don't have internal critics. The leftists don't have enough internal critics. You don't have enough. So who else do you rely on to render critique or evaluation of these people who claim to be virtuous and moral and do-gooders, okay? While at the same time, putting stacks of money in their purses. So the critique of BLM is on. It is very important. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, guys, that I think is important, and again, it's the message. Here's the thing, guys. Here she is, Candace Owens. And the question, guys, y'all share, y'all like, y'all subscribe, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the Cash App, $BMI 3000, Cash App, $BMI 3000, Cash App, $BMI 3000. And the question that we've been wrestling with tonight is this: is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? Is Candace Owens an ally of Black men? Is she an ally of Black men? And the last thing, guys, the last thing that I want to talk about, and you know what? I'm gonna drop the link. The last thing I want to talk about is what she says about victimization and victimhood. Okay. And here's the thing: all throughout her book, and I think she is absolutely right. All throughout the book, Candace Owens says that Black Americans in this country have been fed a constant diet of victimization and victimhood, and that liberals and leftists, including Black liberals and Black leftists, they have taught Black people to see themselves exclusively as victims. That racism, white supremacy is so arduous, it is so impactful, it is so all-encompassing, it is so monstrous that Black people cannot function without the benevolence, the philanthropy, and a codependent relationship with white America. Victimization. And she has a chapter in this book where she talks about slavery. She talks a little bit about reparations, but slavery. And I have to agree, and I've done videos on this. Guys. I have to agree that Black people are fed a constant diet of victimization. And Cornel West had to agree with her too. And here's the thing: the kind of victimization, even victimology that Black people are fed today, it didn't exist. It didn't exist during the time of Jim Crow. The victimhood mindset that a lot of Blacks have, a lot of Black liberals in particular, the Black liberal woman, liberal Black women are the most victimologists in Black society. Your liberal Black female, everything about her, everything that comes out of her mouth, the liberal Black female, everything that comes out of her mouth is about victimization. Everything is about victimization. Colorism, microaggressions, Me Too, fat phobia, everything. Everything is about victimization. And they teach children, and children, Black children are taught this stuff. And it's a paralyzing ideology. It's a paralyzing ideology. Now, here's the thing, guys. Here's the things. Victims do exist in the world. There are victims. Victims exist. Victims exist, guys. Victims exist. They're real. And there are victims among Black people. A lot of Black people are victimized every single day. So victimization is a real thing, man. It is. If you are exploited by the criminal justice system, yeah, you're a victim. You are falsely accused of a crime that you didn't commit, and you're in prison for decades. You know, you're in solitary confinement. You're on death row. You are a victim. You understand what I'm saying? If you try to get work and employment, and you're constantly discriminated against, you're constantly running up against a wall of hostility towards you because you're a Black male, man, you're a victim. That's real. That's real. So victimization is real. Or victims exist, they're real. But the ideology that Black people have absolutely no agency. And this is one of the reasons why I preach Black male independence, guys. This is one of the reasons why I preach Black male independence. Because the liberals want you to be a victim. The leftists want you to be a victim. Okay? And it seems like in order to be a part of that club, you gotta be a card carrier. You gotta be a card carrier of victimization. You gotta be a card carrier. And it can suffocate. It is suffocating when you do not acknowledge the fact that there are avenues in this world, in this life, that you could take an advantage of to achieve a better life. Here's the other thing of it. The other thing of it is this, guys, is that much of liberal and left-wing politics is kind of utopian politics. It's utopian. So the people who are talking about anti-racism and the people who are against, the homophobia, and they're against sexism and transphobia and all this kind of stuff, they're trying to achieve a kind of paradise. And if you listen to these people long enough, they will have you believing that you cannot act in this world, that you have to wait in order for some paradise, for some promised land to be achieved, in order for one to exercise any type of freedom or agency. This is the problem. And this is the problem. And so I agree with Candace Owens in terms of the excessive nature of victimhood that is sold to Black people. It's excessive. It's hegemonic. It is dangerous to see yourself as a perpetual victim, even though you deal with victimization. It's dangerous. There would have never been slave revolts had slaves saw themselves as just defeated victims. There would have never been a civil rights movement or Black power movement if Black people saw themselves exclusively in victimized terms. You wouldn't have hip hop. You wouldn't have a popular culture. You wouldn't have, super athletics. You wouldn't have Black businesses. You wouldn't have Black people going to school. We have all kinds of evidence of Black people doing things where Black people are not just sitting around waiting for somebody to deliver them. And yes, we deal, and yes, my brother, we are telling the truth. We are telling the truth. But that's it, the truth. And we're dealing with, you're talking about the history, we're dealing with the consequences of our history, the consequences. And the reality, guys, is that we're in a moment right now, we don't know where we're going. And we're at a place now, you've got, she talks about this, and I've said this, and even apart from her, I think that Black people are being displaced. Afro-Americans are being displaced right now. Other people are displacing Black people. The liberals are using other groups. They're using the other groups, the other identitarian groups, whether it be Latinos, women, gays and lesbian, trans. They're using other groups to replace Black people. Thank you, Eagle Eyes, for that. He said Black men in the 70s didn't have that victim mindset. It's mind-boggling to see our family structure today compared to 20, 50 years ago. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Thank you for that, Eagle Eyes. We are being displaced. I'm going to tell you this, guys. I was in Charlotte. I went to Charlotte. I'm going to tell you what happened. I went to Charlotte, North Carolina. I drove to Charlotte the other day. Charlotte is 1 hour from where I live. And I went to a popular mall. I went to a popular mall in the North Charlotte area. It's called South Lake Mall. I'm sorry, it's called North Lake. Yeah, South Lake Mall. It's a very popular mall. And I used to go to this mall sometime to shop. And there would always be lots of Black people in this mall. And it's in the big suburb. It's in the big suburb in Charlotte. So I called myself going to the mall, and I hadn't been there in a long time. It had been a long time since I've been to this mall. I called myself going to the mall. And the mall is being torn down. I get there in the mall, the place where the mall once stood. New construction is happening where the mall once stood. And I told you that this mall is located in a suburban area in Charlotte. And guys, I'm looking around, and there are all kinds of construction happening around. And then it finally hit me, guys. It finally hit me. I said, why did they tear this mall down? Why did they tear this mall down? I don't have any scientific evidence for this, but I'm going to tell you what my gut feeling, what my third eye discerned. They don't want no more black people coming to this area. These people don't want these black people coming down to this area. This mall was a site for black people. And they're tearing the mall down. They tore it down. And they got a whole bunch of new construction all over the place. And they're raising they're raising the price of real estate. They don't want black people around. There is a black removal program that's happening in this country. There is a black removal program that's happening in this country. And you can't have a victim mindset. You can't be caught up in victimization if you're going to deal with this new situation, this black removal situation. They're removing black people. In my city where I live, black people are being removed. It's big. It is bigger. It is not just gentrification. It's not just gentrification. It's just complete black removal. A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her. I understand that. A lot of you guys don't really care for her. Okay? I think she's a good debater. I think she's a good debater. The black liberals, they won't touch her. The liberal women won't touch her. I would love to see her debate Stacey Abrams. I would love to see her debate Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams out of Georgia. I would love to see her debate Stacey Abrams. I would love to see her debate Tamika Mallory. I would love her to see her debate Tamika Mallory, the woman who was with Al Sharpton's network. I would love to see her debate Patrice Cullors of Black Lives Matter, or formerly of Black Lives Matter, Patrice Cullors. I would love to see her debate Aliza Garza of formerly of Black Lives Matters. I would love to see her debate Aliza Garza. I would love to see her debate Dr. Brittany Cooper. Dr. Brittany Cooper. I would pay to see her debate Dr. Brittany Cooper over all of these issues. So you want to talk about is Candace Owens? Here's the deal: is Candace Owens an ally? I want you to take all those, take the names of all the women I just named, all the black liberal and feminist women, liberal, feminist, and queer women. Take all those people, put them on one side, and put them next to Candace Owens. And ask yourself, who would you rather have as your ally? Who would you rather have as your ally? Who? Who would you rather have? All through this broadcast, I'm not telling you that she is an ally, but I'm questioning her message and what she says. Because everything that she says is not exclusive. Everything that she says is not exclusive to the right. It might be nestled in the right, it might be nestled in conservatism, but it's not exclusive to conservatism. Now, I don't know if Green Gorilla is still in the house. Gigi, if you want to come on in, I'm dropping the link. I'm dropping a link. I don't normally do this, but I'm dropping a link. Before we wrap things up, if you want to weigh in, we got the G with the PhD is in the house. The G with the PhD is in the house. How you doing, brother? Can you hear me? GG. I don't know if you can hear me. So we got the Green Gorilla. Let's try this again. We're going to try it again. I don't know if you can hear me, brother.
Can you hear me, man?
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Good. What's good, man? How are you?
What's going on, man? How are you, man? I said I had to stop in, man. I saw you pop up on the the YouTube streets. I said, let me check him out. What's going on, bro?
Man, I'm good, man. I'll just share with you, man. I've been watching Candace Owens for a minute, man, and and I showed the book, man. I read her stuff, and so much of what we talk about in this space, man, is in her rhetoric. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah.
Not everything, but I'm like, there's a lot that's there, and I raised it. I wanted to get what the brothers think. You know what I mean? And you know what I want to do, and this is for everyone who's listening, guys. I'm going to cover some more of these conservatives, man. I'm going to talk about some more of these Black conservatives, because I don't think that they get enough critical evaluation. We have marginalized them to the detriment of Black political thought, and I think that we don't have a robust kind of political culture, man. And I say this as somebody, I identify. I said this as brother before. I don't identify as a Black conservative or Republican, a Black Republican, but I'm sympathetic to the perspective because they have a minority point of view.
Gotcha.
And then the other part of it, which I didn't say earlier, is that there is a conservative core. There's a conservative streak that runs through Black America, Black people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we are people who've been shaped by Protestant Christianity, by Catholicism, by Islam, by different religious traditions and everything. And although it might not be as visible today as it once was, the impact is definitely there. So for all you guys who are listening, y'all be on the lookout for more coverage of these conservatives and what have you. So Candace Owens is the first one. Tonight is the inaugural night of the investigation of Black conservatives. Anyway, man, you've been listening, man. I appreciate you here, man. Just go in and weigh in whatever you want to say about this area, Candace Owens, stuff related, man. The floor is all yours, brother.
Oh man, that's a tall order to fill, but the only thing I can say is that listening to Black conservatives is necessary, partially because we've been sold over the past, I don't know, maybe 40 years, the idea that Black liberals are sacrosanct.
Yeah.
I mean, that they can't be critiqued, that they can't be put under a microscope, that their word is the gospel.
Yep.
And is there a great deal of victimization on the left? Yes, but now this is victimization on steroids.
Yeah.
And not very substantive forms of thinking surrounding victimization. Like, I mean, so you got a bunch of, let me tell you how this actually occurred. Okay. So in the university, you had a bunch of people who basically were paid to write about oppression, domination, victimization, violence, in a bunch of domains, in a bunch of areas of life. And sometimes it just became hyperbolic. Okay. And so, you know, the idea of microaggressions, about the idea about being triggered, the ideas about you know, people needing safe spaces and you know, things like this. It's gotten out of hand, and it's gotten to the point where even people on the left have acknowledged that it's out of hand. So that's, you know, why I covered the letter that these people on the left wrote for Harper's magazine, where they began to say, well, look, the people on the left have become intolerant. It's to the point where they're not even engaging in dialogue. They're cutting dialogue off, which is anti-democratic.
It is.
Which is anti-intellectual. And you know, it's you know, back even in the 60s and the 70s, you had robust debate amongst different poles of the political spectrum. People would come in and have conversations. You had Francis Cress Welsing, who was arguing with an ardent racial ideologue. You had Jim Brown arguing with a racist senator or a politician. I mean, you know, these people would come out and have conversations. Today, there is no conversation. It's just proselytization. And I have a problem with that. And so, you know, and also I think that on the left, what you're getting is a heavy dose of moralizing. And that's not doing Black folks or any other kind of folks who are supposedly victimized. That's not doing them any good, where you just point your finger and say, your people are bad, we're good. You people are doing such bad things. Like, look, morality is not going to get us out of the trouble spot that we're in. And that's, you know, and you know, there are scholars who've acknowledged and noticed this. You know, like if you want to study what the objective conditions on the ground for Black people are and try to find ways to actually scientifically, whether it's hard science or social science, in order to try to mitigate the problems, I'm all for that. But just sitting back and saying, you know, this group of people are X, Y, or Z, or this group of people are misogynist, or this group of people are, you know, transphobic or homophobic, or they're racist. I mean, we can call people out on racism. We know the history of racism in this country, but the conversations, even substantive conversations surrounding racism, are non-existent anymore. They just don't exist anymore. So everything has become about identity and cultural politics. No more structural politics. No more material dialectics politics. It's just a bunch of, you know, politics of identity and cultural issues. And quite frankly, I'm sick of it, man. Like, the people on the right are beginning to sound like reasonable people, way more so than the people on the left, bro. It's the truth, man.
And that's why I'm raising this question, man, because, you know, she is debating people, man. I mean, and she's out there being a public intellectual, and I don't say all this, you know, to, you know, overly praise her or anything like that, but you know, she's a part of that element on the right that's like, we need to expand, you know what I'm saying, and have a discourse. It's like, you know, I didn't talk about this in the book, but she talks about college campuses, you know, and she talks about safe spaces, and she talks about censorship, and she talks about you know, fragility and the problems that we have with, you know, this over concern with microaggressions, these, you know, first world issues and what have you, man. And so you need people like that of all stripes. But it seems to me, to go back to what you're saying, is that it's the people on the right who are willing, who are the ones who are the beacons of it now. It seems to be, you know what I'm saying? Not to say there's no narrowness over there, but it seems to me that they're the ones who are pushing kind of trying to push the discourse.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think that the right at the current moment has a case to make against ideologues on the left who become almost religious, puritanical in the way that they present information in the belief systems that they hold, and in their, I would say, with the relative ease with which they stigmatize and characterize people outside of their political spectrum as somehow, evil, morally bankrupt, backwards, right? So, look, I can't. I understand that a person who's a trans person is probably having a hard time in life. They got some identity issues. They feel embarrassed. The environment is not very warming and welcoming to them to some degree, I guess. I don't know because I'm not a trans person, but I mean, come on, man. We're talking about basic biology. Now we can't even have a conversation about basic biology anymore.
Yeah.
Because the only truth is that, truth is not actually anything other than a display of power. And the people who, profess any, admission or to try to define or to explicate any idea related to truth is nothing more than a power play. So, it's the left have become sophists, man. And it's too much, and somebody needs to reel them in. And if Candace Owens is one of those persons, then okay, then Candace Owens is one of those persons. Now let me say this: I don't believe that racism doesn't exist, because she said some things that I found quite alarming, like America's not a racist country. I'm like, come on, let's just be honest about that. Like, America's a racist country, man. We can't deny that, okay? But the point is that the left has found a way to sidestep the issue of race anyway. Now it's all about women, trans, gay persons' rights. It's about everybody's rights except for the people who actually have the hardest lot. So that's my issue, with the left. But there's some things, I don't believe in. In relation to the right to capitalism is the end all be all. Like, I mean, I don't believe in the idea of Pareto optimality resulting or ensuing from, individuals making choices, like rational calculators in the marketplace. I just don't believe that that's the case. I mean, if it was the case, then why did you have the robber baron monopolies in the early part of the 20th century? I mean, clearly, capitalists, or capitalism is not the end all be all either. I'm not saying communism is the answer or socialism is the answer, but I'm just saying things can go wrong on both ends of the political spectrum. Neither one of these ideologies are perfect. But, I just think that Black folks need to be open-minded, and we need to start thinking outside of the box. And currently, the left and liberal box, man, it is closed-minded. It's almost like being in Orwellian space. So I want to challenge people on the left, and it's becoming tiring hearing what the people on the left have to say. And the other issue again that I think nobody actually deals with again is, what is the leftist cultural politics actually done to improve the quality of the average person's life in the Black community or any other community for that matter? What has it done? Has it closed the wealth gap? I mean, the only thing I see is that it's giving rise to tokenism. That's the only thing I can actually see that's been done. So, that's just my 2 cents on that, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time, man.
No, man. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that, man. But yeah, it's. I mean, I think we're at a critical juncture, man. Right now, where serious decisions have to be made. Politically. You know what I mean? And as I was saying before, I'm convinced, that we're being displaced and removed, and and the people on the left are contributing to it, you know, and the liberals are contributing to it, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you know, it makes no sense to pretend that, you know, this stuff is not happening. And, you know, and I think that Black people, you know, if they're going to be political actors and players in this country, man, you know, have to really, you know, take stock of what's going on, man. I mean, like I said, man, look, you know, Biden, I mean, we're 2 years into this administration, and they're celebrating just symbolic stuff, you know, Ketanji Brown Jackson, you know, Biden didn't act on his Lift Every Voice plan and the stuff he said that he would direct towards Black men, and we haven't seen anything, you know, and I'm not surprised because I didn't vote for him. I voted third party and everything, and I knew that this was going to happen. But for Black men, you know, I think we need to know where we are, and I think politically, you know, we need to be able to identify across the spectrum, you know, what is beneficial to us and what is not. And I've heard you said it. I've heard you said it on your platform that, you know, it is a strong possibility, you know, if this left doesn't change, that Black people, Black men in particular, can find themselves going to the right. You know what I mean?
But how could you not go to the right? All you got to do is just be a person who has, I hate to say this, but I mean, common sense is going to pull you to the right nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, like the left at one point in time had a certain reputation, particularly as it was a political perspective that dealt with institutional injustices, or that at least had a scope, or, you know, like, you know, that had a platform that was aimed at redressing institutional economic injustice and racial injustice. And again, the target was laws and institutions and economic structures. Now it's become individual people. Okay, or like, if your target is an individual as opposed to a structure, if your target is, okay, I'm gonna have a corporation cancel an individual, right, over something that they said that I didn't like, that was in the domain of, you know, like good taste. I mean, at the current moment, like Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is a joke teller. He said some things that were pretty unflattering about gay folks, but I mean, he says things that are unflattering about a whole bunch of people. Okay. So now he says something to trigger your identity group. So it's time to put pressure on a corporation, not for what the corporation is doing, but because they don't like the corporation's connection to the individual that they don't like in a business relationship. This is backwards to me. Okay, so you know, you can't. The left has gone too far now. It's going beyond the realm of good taste, man. That's all I can say. And the corporations now have become the arbiters of morality. I've said this before. So you make an appeal to businesses. You make an appeal to you know, entities that used to be the target. Now that appeals are being made to them to punish people. How can justice ensue from that? I don't get it. I don't understand it. We're not worried about Amazon.com and labor relations. We're not worried about you know, trying to ensure that, you know, the wealth gap is closed. We're not trying to deal with Black folks in the ecology of poverty anymore. We're worried about you know, who's able to have sex with who's on a TV show with who, you know, who's not represented on TV shows or in businesses as tokens. It's quite frankly, it's a shit show, man. I don't know how else to say it. It's a shit show. And at the end of the day, the most homeless people, like victimization is real. You, like you said it. Now you don't want to harp on it. You want to find a way to understand it. You want a consciousness raised related to it, and then commit yourself to action in order to try to ameliorate the injustices. That's what you want to do. But you know, if the structure's already in place, like if the way you deal with injustice is to get a bunch of white folks to really actually not do anything but give 10 donations or hit the super chat up, give you some money, and then you take it and go spend it on frivolous bullshit, that's not changing the structure, man. It's not dealing with the core issues, man. So here we go again. But the fact that you like the right is, I'm glad at least the right had the good sense to criticize BLM.
Yeah.
But the fact that nobody on the left to this point is really actually saying anything about these women, man, and really basically saying this is a tragedy. This is what went wrong with black politics. This is what's going wrong with black politics now. And what can we do to straighten it out? And then you had like Tashina Arnold come on, you know, and say, well, what can we do to stop it? Some of it. Like the question is directly related to the proliferation of identity politics, particularly intersectional politics, and no one's willingness to say anything about it because it's a moral argument. Right? It's not about changing structures. It's about getting people recognized, being seen, being valued. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't care if you value me at all. If you make sure that there's no poverty and that everybody has a place to stay and got some food to eat, I don't give a fuck who you fucking. I'm sorry to say that. You know, like, why would I care if you acknowledge my sex, who I'm sexing or whatever? If I'm eating and I got a place to stay, my light, my gas is on and everything, and I'm able to earn money, and if I get sick, I'm able to get decent health care. Why would I care if you love me or not, or you respect me or not? Because you can't get the respect of the world. Okay, so, but we're not even talking. The left is not even having a conversation about this anymore, man.
No.
All they're talking about is this identity group or that identity group, bro. And I just don't. And that's tokenism, man.
It is.
And Kwame Ture, man, a long time ago, man, Kwame Ture, he was part of the civil rights movement. Stokely Carmichael. Okay. He was part of it. He said, look, what's going to end up happening is black folks are going to elide. The civil rights movement is going to elide into tokenism if we're not vigilant and we don't pay attention. And lo and behold, this is where we are now, bro.
This is exactly where we are, man. And that's what makes, you know, this perspective, what Owens has, I think it's compelling and everything. And as I said when I started out, I mean, she didn't, she's building on so many other people who came before her and everything like that. And she's just very, articulate in communicating, this perspective and everything. But you have to, as you said, what's the alternative? You know what I mean? And as black men, our stuff is particular, and it's like, I'm looking at, what she says and stuff. Like I told folks, when Trump said, "What do you got to lose?" I took that seriously. You know what I'm saying? Even though I didn't vote for Trump, but I took it seriously, and I thought that was a real thing. You know what I mean? And he was looking at these cities. And just saying flat out, as a president or presidential candidate at the time, that this Democratic establishment, this liberal establishment, has really screwed y'all. So you might as well try something different. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And here's the thing. So people talk about how dangerous he was, but the question came up during his administration, even now, what exactly did he do as a president to directly harm black people or directly harm, since we're talking about black men, like black men? What exactly did he do, policy wise, in terms of the administration? And I started this stream, with a conversation this conversation that Candace Owens had with Cornel West, some time ago, and she was kind of saying essentially the same thing, and talking about what was happening with Black unemployment, that it had decreased under Trump and everything like that, and again, I don't say this to endorse Trump, but the point is that so when you ask the question of what is an ally and who is your enemy and all that kind of stuff, this is the kind of stuff you got to take into consideration. Who's actually working against me, and who's actually doing things that work, to benefit me or to benefit us in the end. And 2024 is right around the corner. They have these midterm elections, man. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to be surprised if you just have a larger defection to the right on the part of Black men, because these folks are not really working to the benefit of us. We got Charles Faulkner in the house.
How you doing, good doctors? Good doctors, good doctors.
What's happening?
Hey, Gigi, long time no see.
Yes, sir. What's cracking?
Got my cigar, got my liquor. I'm here with my brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Good to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just put the finishing touches of my security firm. It's actually official now. Have my little EIN number. Have the insurance.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have so many offers from so many people.
Good.
So when people try to bury you, you got to rise like a phoenix.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, man. If you want to weigh in on the stuff that we've been talking about, Candace Owens and Black men politics. Yes, sir.
It's kind of funny that you say that an ally, because I don't think Black men understand what an ally is because we've been so downtrodden. I think that we look down so far, we can't look up or around us to see who's on our side.
Yeah.
And I'm really. Oh, go ahead, Gigi.
No, I was just gonna say, man, look, you start talking about allies, man. But Biden has not been an ally to Black men.
No.
It doesn't take. Like, Trump did not do as much or near as much damage at all, like, to Black men as did Joe Biden. Like, he was one of the authors of that damn crime bill that put like millions of Black men in prison. It got the prison rate up so large that you have more Black men in prison in the United States than you have women in prison all over the world.
And that's a shame. That's a damn shame, actually. And to think about it, it's like when you think about that, when Black men are not even made to put in front to make a decision, like, no, this guy you got as president is diametrically opposed to my existence. So I got to think for myself, and that's why you got to be a multifaceted man. Wish that damn neighbor dog shut the hell up, but. And a lot of times when it comes to allies, people don't know when to have somebody to speak on their behalf. Because in a militaristic realm, there's some people who can get things by honey than by vinegar. And some people just spit honey or vinegar at times. You got to use people to your interests. And that's what I've been telling Black men. Stop voting party, stop voting personality, vote interest.
There you go.
Yeah, but Black folks, man, I don't know what it is about Black folks and the Democratic Party, man, but I forget the year where Black folks began to switch over from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. But at first, you had a whole bunch of Dixiecrats in the Democratic Party. I mean, that was like the uber racist party. These Dixiecrats, and there's still elements of Dixiecrat, ideology. There are elements of that in the current Democratic Party.
That's right.
And the reason why Clinton was able to come in and be as successful as he was his connection to being a Dixiecrat.
That's it.
It's like people don't get this. It's like, okay, well, if they're Democratic, they're this. Like, you can't think inside of the box. You can't just be a one-trick pony when it comes to politics. You have to see what people's democratic, what their voting records are, what their ideological records are, what kind of bills they passed when they were, in the House or the Senate or wherever, or when they were governors or mayors. You have to pay attention to that. But black folks, most Americans, though, I can't just blame this on black folks. Most people are non-attentive to what's going on politically until the election cycle, and then they just go off popularity and they go off what the pundits say, okay, and what the people in the media tell them to do. They hit the major outlets, the Huff Post, the CNNs, the Fox Newses, or whatever. They don't really pay attention to politics, and they're not actually engaged. They just perceive politics as like a passive activity. It's almost like you're a consumer. Like, you go to the mall, this is what you're picking. So they're not actually involved in the political process as thoroughly as they ought to be. Especially people like us. I mean, we have a deep-seated interest in being involved in the political process because we've been left out, and our interests are not being actually levied and substantively acknowledged there. So like, the Democratic Party is going to keep abusing this, man, if we don't stand up and say, this is what we want, this is what we demand. But of course, Ice Cube came out and tried to make some inroads in that domain, and the first thing that happened was he got the side eye. He got snickered on by black women. Some of the black women he helped put on, kind of snickered at him and took jabs at him.
Well, the one she actually stayed quiet the whole time. I might need another role.
Well, Lisa Ray ain't stupid. She know who buttered her bread. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's like, for some reason, man, men have become so browbeaten that they feel ashamed. I mean, it's men all over in this culture, though. I mean, it's definitely in the black culture, but it's to the point where now you have to be on the defensive. People are trying to protect their imagery, their branding, right? So they don't say what they want to say. It's like, you can't, like, everything you might say can be used against you and prevent you from being able to explore future career or commercial, opportunities. So, but that's just a function, to me, of overreaching by the corporate sphere in and of itself, because the corporate sphere shouldn't have that much power over your ability to live a life well lived in the context of American culture, man. It shouldn't. And the people who claim to be proponents of justice shouldn't be using corporate structures in order to punish individual people for not sharing their own ideology. We got to do something about this, man. If we don't do something about it soon, it's over.
Well, Gigi, this is the equivalent of making a lion go to a litter box. And that's pretty much the equivalent of what is going through for masculinity. Like, oh, you're toxic and you're too masculine, you're too toxic. I'm like, you do understand that so-called toxic masculinity is what makes you sleep comfortably in your bed at night, what builds your buildings, your houses, that ruggedness. See, it's not just political, social, like you said, it's ideological. It's just something that you're raising the next generation to be. It's this whole why, like, I don't get why black men just don't say this every time a politician comes in their face. What's the last thing you did for black boys and men? What are you going to do for black boys and men? Please go.
There you go.
And I've actually said that in front of politicians, even in full uniform. And they were like, well, I said, so you're telling me here in Baltimore, you see the abysmal, I'm going to say it one more time, the abysmal GPA scores of these black boys. And you sat on that city council for how long? and you did nothing about it. And trust me, I've spoken to many people in the city council. I actually sat in their office after hours, and they had a nice, good cognac with them. And I said, how can y'all actually sit there and know that the reason why the crime rate's going up because the opportunities and the education is going down? It's a correlation. You got to look at it very simply. When you give somebody the skills and the opportunity to work, crime goes down. It's the biggest crime fighter ever. So a lot of brothers don't want to bang in the street when they know they making $20, $30 an hour, and they be like, I can't lose this joint. So we really got to look into giving opportunities back to our boys and then to the men. If they're not politically savvy enough to actually give me a good reason to vote for them, next. Or what black men need to do is galvanize and take those positions for themselves. But I don't know how long I've been saying this, Art New Style.
Hold on before you go. We got 85 people watching. Thank you all for being a part of this live stream. Hit the likes, please hit the likes. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel. Please do if you want to support. You can send in your Cash App, $BMR 3000, Cash App, $3000. You can send a super chat or super sticker. Hold on, I want to get Art New Style, and then Gigi, you can go on. We have Art New Style. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, my friend? And what's going on, team? And what's going on, Mr. Charles Faulkner? Woo!
What's going on, bro?
Woo! What's up,
man? About to eat, but I just wanted to chime in real quick about the Candace Owens thing, because we talked about her quite a bit. And I put it in the chat. I'm like, maybe it's that whole concept of the Kraken versus the head of Medusa from the Clash of the Titans. Meaning the Kraken is the the Ligibits and whatever, the feminist and whatever else, where the head of Medusa is Candace. But but I always wondered too, what is her, before I even pull a lever or even just hold guns with her as far as allies. What exactly is her agenda? From the outside, it just looks like her agenda is just to make sure that she's a voice for the white establishment that don't want to speak out and look a certain way. So I always looked at her in that way and make me look at her sideways to even see if I could even turn my back, even though she said the things that are pretty much in alignment, some things that are in alignment with black men. But if I was to support her, it'd probably be from afar, like behind the curtain or something.
Who's that? Somebody got something going on.
Yeah, that's my wife. That's my wife doing get some ice.
Oh, okay.
I told her it's kind of loud. Okay. But so that's the thing that I always look at, or any of these some of these conservatives, because I try to listen, with a third ear or what have you, to see what's going on and what they're coming from. I go all the way back, to the Armstrong Williams and the Michael Steeles and and sometimes I'm not, I'm bobbing my head, and sometimes I'm gritting my teeth. Like, dang, does it have to be like that? So that's what I want to do, is come up here and chime in on that.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. I think that's fair. I think we can be both critical of the right, but at the same time understand that there's some merit in some of what the people on the right have to say. Okay. But I'm a political independent, just like Dr. Neal is. And so, I don't think that racism passes over, like the angel of the Lord passes over the liberals, any more than it passes over the Republicans. Like, we live in a country that has a history of institutionalized racism, and it hasn't redressed it in a substantive way. It hasn't been addressed. And now you have the identity politics, which enables people to continuously pass over it again. Like we don't have to visit it because we're being just on so many other accounts. So we can just kind of like move forward without having to go back and do the work that's necessary to actually pull us out of the condition that we're in. But who wants to do that work? America doesn't want to do that work. White, like Bruce Jenner doesn't want to do that. Well, Caitlyn Jenner doesn't want to do that work. Okay. Laverne Cox don't want to do that work.
No.
Alicia Garza don't want. They say they wanted to do that work, but when they got the opportunity to cash out, they went and bought a mansion. and Tamika Mallory said she was about that work, but she signed a deal with Cadillac. So imagine MLK saying the justice train has moved on, and now I'm going to Cadillac. Imagine Malcolm X saying, imagine Malcolm X or Fannie Lou Hamer saying, I've decided to take my talents to Amazon. It's what they call sellout. These are sellouts. Okay, and look, there's problems. Like I don't like the two-party system. I think it gets us caught in ideological ruts and canalized thinking in general. But I mean, when it comes to cultural issues, you have to say, okay, so I'm gonna tell you where I disagree with the right. I disagree with their economic ideology. But I agree with them partially on what they have to say about cultural issues, especially as it pertains to sex at the current moment, man. For crying out loud, the left has taken sexual politics to a whole new level, man. It's like we live, and there's a linguist, Noam Chomsky, and he talked about this like 9-10 years ago. He was having a conversation. Somebody asked him about the new left and the avant-garde left and the academicians. These are people, man, who are wealthy, upper middle class people, man. Like white folks, man, who they get paid to say radical stuff. Their research is predicated on just saying the most radical thing that they can.
That's it.
And they don't feel the sting of disadvantage, man. These people are well-to-do, well-heeled, networked people, man. And they give lip service to radicality. But these motherfuckers, they go into Starbucks, man. They live in their suburbs, man. They're not trying to dibble and dabble. They're not coming to a hood near you. They're not in the projects. They ain't in Marcy. They not at the Cochran projects in St. Louis, man. They not in Ferguson, Missouri, man. You know what I'm saying? These people are in the whitest part of America that they can be in, man. Most of these people, okay? And they give lip service to racial radicality at their jobs, but sexual radicality doesn't cost the academy anything. It doesn't cost the corporation anything, and it doesn't cost the government anything. So that's why it's the poster child of progressiveness at the current moment. All you gotta shit. I'm like Dave Chappelle now. Shit, I'm gonna start calling myself the Green Gorillina. if I get some money or some shit.
You get some shit out there, that's right.
Maybe if I put on some high heels or some shit, I won't get shot.
There you go.
So at the end of the day, man, I'm not gonna stay here too much longer because I'll talk forever, man. But does the right have some substantive things to say? Yes, they do. But when you hear nothing but an echo chamber, and then the performance, the outcome of the people who profess what they profess doesn't come to fruition, and that BLM, man, that was proof positive that black female politics in and of itself does not lift all boats as so-called they rise. It's proof positive of it.
That's it.
And so that's why I guarantee you that's why they're not dealing with it. in a pervasive way in the media, especially the left, right? The right, of course, is talking about it, but they're not speaking on it because it demonstrates that this idea, this argument that was put forth in the Combahee River Collective, that if black women are free, everyone else is going to be free. It's like if us gay, ugly, fat lesbians, if we making money, everybody else gonna make money.
That's right. That's right.
That's been proven to be a lie.
False. Andrew Green, thank you for that, Andrew Green, for that super chat. Got one contributor, G Money. How you doing, sir?
Hey, brother, how you doing? Good day to you, Dr. Ron O'Neill, Gigi.
Good.
How you guys doing? I don't know if that's Officer Faulkner. I don't know if he left. Good day to him too.
Yes,
but
sir.
I just wanted to chime in really quick. I think with Candace Owens and people like her, there's a saying: you eat the meat, and you spit out the bones. There's a lot I can agree with, but I detest her 18-minute diatribe on the character and just the demonization of George Floyd. That, like you said in the show, that could have been you, that could have been me. But the thing I started to understand over the years, and I also became an independent. I mean, I used to be Democrat. Is that I went to school, had the opportunity to gain higher education and work in corporate America, and I just saw myself as a black man, educated black man, going to work every day, not doing anybody anything wrong, and constantly being demonized, constantly being told that you did this, or if you would make more money than me just because you're a man, without the context of race taking place. And my critique of feminism when it comes from black women is that they never try to go after white patriarchy. It's always this antagonism towards black men. You never really see them going after white patriarchy, which is the root of a lot of the issues. But they seem to attack black men because it's an easy target. No one's going to criticize them for that. And I started to see that not long ago, maybe a few years back, and I was like, why am I standing over here with them? They hate guys like me, and I don't know. And I think this is a great show, but with people like her, would I call her an ally? I don't know. That diatribe she did on George Floyd, it really turned me off. That's the thing with these sort of people. You got to be careful, because at the end of the day, it comes back to white supremacist rhetoric, that's directed towards black men, and I can't fully support somebody that would talk about someone else killed by a cop like that, But a lot of the things she said about, families and the focus on LGBTQ issues over, the historic issues that plagued our community, I agree with. But someone getting killed by the cop on camera, and you're just that's not an excuse to defend the cop. I'm sorry, but yeah. That's all I had to say on that. I just think it's a great show, but I think I would fall more in line with her beliefs. But ultimately, I don't think she speaks on behalf of like black men in general. I think there's some points that we can take and we can agree with, but it just turned me off what she said about George Floyd. Despite his criminal record, I mean, I don't agree with criminality, but that's still not an excuse for murder.
Before I leave, and appreciate you having me up here. But I wanted to find out, okay, say if, brothers did fall in line with her and allied and, pretty much backed her up and showed up to all the lectures and the debates and everything, but still kept your identity as Black men. The question would be to the panel, how would the white right receive her? Will they see her different, or would they be glad that she brought some people in, towards the party? And peace, everybody. I'll take my answer off the air.
Rude dog.
Rudy Routine. All right, y'all.
Anybody want to take a stab at that?
I mean, come on, man. This is America, man. Like, look, who's to say what the future holds and what, the Republican Party will, allow to come into their circle. I mean, you still got a lot of people who are white nationalists out here.
Yeah.
And to argue that like there aren't white nationalistic elements within the Republican Party is to be naive.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to admit that, right?
Of course.
And there are a lot of people who are willing to play step and fetch your politics in order to gain or curry favor with that element. It happens, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, to some degree, it doesn't mean that, everything that she says is, colored by that. But I mean, there are some things that she says that are colored, by that tendency to, to kind of dance in front of white folks.
Yeah.
But I think that what she's saying about manhood, traditional family values, men's place in the family, being important and being like necessary for the development of children, for them to be holistic, for them to have, a sense of well-being. I think it's important for her to have said. Now, I don't agree with what she said about George Floyd, and I don't agree, I can support the fighting of crime without supporting extrajudicial and arbitrary killing of people for bullshit. Like selling a loose cigarette should not give you a death sentence. Okay,
that's the thing.
Carrying Skittles and having a hoodie on, looking suspicious, because traditionally, who looks suspicious? You do. It doesn't matter. I mean, you look suspicious. Like if you got a suit on, you look suspicious. If you're driving in a BMW, you look suspicious. If you're driving in a hoopty, you look suspicious. You just look suspicious because you fit the profile of somebody who looks suspicious, because Black men have always been suspicious in America. It just is what it is.
So that's the thing. That's why I said you eat the meat and you spit out the bones with her. Someone that would say something like that about George Floyd, I kind of find that hard to find a person like that to be an ally. I don't know. It sounds like a racist white supremacist. It sounds like something that they would say.
But you have Black men in the manosphere say the same thing. Like I've heard Black men in the manosphere say he was a junkie. Look, let me just say this. Let me give you a list of white men who've been junkies. Okay, George Bush, the man did cocaine. Okay, nobody thought that he should have been executed for playing around and snorting cocaine while he was, a college student or even a early career politician. Nobody thought that he should be, basically summarily executed for having done what he did. Rush Limbaugh got caught up with OxyContin pills. Nobody thought that he should be summarily executed for that. And how many other white men, like Wall Street, how many white men on Wall Street using cocaine?
Of course.
Men doping in the sports, professional sports, using illegal and illicit substances. Are they supposed to get executed? Would you look at their lives and say, okay, well, because they did something illicit that's nonviolent? That first of all, I have a problem with the drug war. Period. I think the drug war in its infancy was a racial war, and that's why drugs became illegal in the way that they are now. I think when people try to levy or wage war against drugs, is for the most part a racialized, a kind of undertaking. But that's just my opinion based upon my analysis of it historically and academically. That's just my opinion about it. But that racism is just it's pure as American pie, man. Apple pie, bro. It's here. It ain't going nowhere. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm like Derek Bell. I'm a racial realist. This is my viewpoint of about American culture and society. Now, do I think that black folks should, be self-determining, exhibit agency? Yes, I do. And that's why I'm behind, Dr. Neal when he talks about BMA, BMI, BME, and the whole nine, right? But I can't lose sight of the fact that the middle class in America was underwritten by the federal government, by the GI Bill, and the FHA loan system that the black folks didn't have the ability to participate in to the same degree or the same magnitude as white folks. So while we sit and big up, the outcome or, white folks living in particular areas or enjoying certain lifestyles, we have to be cognizant of how they became participants in those kind of lifestyles, right? And how it was underwritten by social programs. Okay, the same social programs we decry. Okay, now when they get it, it's thank you. Hey, appreciate your Uncle Sam. If something is granted to us, even if it's a stopgap measure, which I think like Section 8, TANF, EBT, that's putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. Getting black people to have the same parity with whites in relation to wealth through home ownership and through, employment programs, that's where that's where the gun's gonna be. All the rest of this shit is butter. And I understand that there's a contingency of people on the left who want to maintain these paternalistic transfer programs. And I don't say get rid of them. I'm just saying that you can't just do that and expect to, pull black folks out of this problem. It ain't gonna happen. Okay, so there has to be some intervention. It can't just be us pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, and that's why that's why I critique the right, okay? Because they act like there was just a group of white people. Like, what about the Homestead Act? They just gave away money to these white folks, man. What about, like the acts which pay white folks not to farm? Like, they got millions of dollars to do nothing to their land. Don't grow no crops, don't develop nothing, we're gonna give you some bank. Go buy you some tractors and go buy you some Cadillacs and some cattle and some shit and just have a good day. None of that was given to us. So that's the issue that I have.
Can't hear you. Sir Truth. We having a hard time hearing you, brother. Your audio.
Yeah, your audio is terrible, bro.
Your audio, man. Your audio. Go ahead.
Sir you got to get that straight. Yeah, Sir P, you got to get that straight.
Yeah,
so, at the end of the day, Doc, man, all I wanted to say, is look, it's not about saying that I want the government to give me a handout. If black people pay taxes, they pay sales tax, they pay real estate tax, they pay sales. I mean, we already said they pay all the taxes that white folks pay, right? And if we pay the same taxes that they pay, I think we ought to receive the full range and scope of benefits that they have ever received in the context of this country. Period. So if they got FHA loans and we would deny them, the government probably needs to go back and reevaluate that and say, hey, we need to do something to get this straight, because this is how we subsidize white America and move them away from, the poverty-stricken conditions like existed in Appalachia and so on and so forth, and move them up into the middle class. They could have done the same thing for us, but they just decided not to do it. Okay, these are the facts. This is a historical record, so we can talk about our, moral praiseworthiness or blameworthiness. But at the end of the day, man, I'm not here to basically say that white folks are more morally, superior because they live in the middle, of the suburbs somewhere, man. I mean, because I know how the suburbs came to be. So all I'm saying is, if black people pay taxes, they ought to receive the same kind of benefits that everyone else has. And if there have been periods in which we haven't received what we should have received, then if this country is actually sincere in healing and repairing what they broke, then they should go back and revisit that, man. But they should. Now, will they do that? Probably not. Okay, but I'd rather us be having those kind of discussions than having a discussion about Laverne Cox, you know, or Caitlyn Jenner, or Jada Pinkett Smith. You know, or you know, to me, those would be more substantive political conversations than the current, you know, kind of conversations that we're having centered around Black male issues. You know, to me, that just seems like it would be more substantive than talking about all this other foolishness, because that's what it is to me. So, yeah.
Well, listen, guys, we are at the 3-hour mark, and I'm gonna shut this thing down. Didn't plan on going this long, but I'm glad that I did, and glad for you guys who came through and everything. Sir Pookie, were you able to chime in and get your stuff together? The floor is yours if you wanted to contribute something, sir. I don't know if your stuff is okay. Anywho, yeah, we're going to wrap things up, and as I said at the outset, I'm going to do more of this and more engagement with the Black conservatives and what they you know, have said over the decades and everything, and where it is today, because I think that we need more. We need more debate and more discourse, you know, and you know, we once had it, you know, years ago, over a century ago, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, you know, that was kind of a classic thing, and that should continue to go on. We shouldn't just have one side, you know. So that's what we're doing. But I appreciate you guys. If you guys have any last words for the brothers.
Well, thank you for having me on the panel, Dr. New.
Cool.
What I like to say is that
Can y'all hear me now?
I think.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can hear you. Yeah.
Go ahead, G-Money. Finish what you're saying.
I think the underlying problem, particularly for Black men, and I'll add in Black boys, is that we don't have a political group that focuses on our issues. You know, you got to pick your poison. You know, yeah, my views line up more with the conservatives at this point in my life, but you know, do I want to listen to rhetoric that demonizes like Black men that are being shot or killed by the cops? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You know,
yeah.
That's the thing. You know, that kind of irks me when I heard that diatribe. You know, she couldn't just keep her mouth shut. You know, about it. But I don't know. That's the underlying issue. We don't have a political party that focuses on our issues that affect us. You know. And that's why I'm so glad that, you know, these spaces exist for us to have conversations about this. You know, yeah, I think most of our views, they do line up with the conservatives, but you know, it's the racism that turns me off. You know, that's the thing.
Cool. Well, thank you, sir, for being with us. I'm going to take you down. Sir P. Chu, how are you doing, sir? Did you want to contribute?
Yeah, how you doing, Dr. New? Yeah, I would say I would, you know, with the go conservative issue, I would say, I mean, it's never really been about the rules or the principles. It's always about the cast line that gets thrown into it. There's never really a party we could follow that's just unequivocally equitable for Black people. So I mean, just that. I mean, even with the conservatives, like it's always something that where race gets thrown into it, or you can't consider actual situations in your life, which just is a massive turnoff.
Cool. Did you want to say anything about the Candace Owens discussion? Oh, we'll see. GG. Any last words, brother?
Oh man, yeah. Thank you for having me on, man. You know, again, man. You know,
appreciate you. Yeah.
America is unlike Candace said, America's not a racist country. I think that's just patently false. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to see the ways in which race have had an impact on the outcome of different demographics, racial demographics, or different racial populations in America. All you got to do is go look at the history. It'll tell you right there how it all came to pass. And so, the question is, how long of a memory do you have? And, do you want to be a go along to get along, or do you just want to be a truth teller? Or do you want to get paid? I mean, you got people paid on the left and the right, man, to espouse particular viewpoints that have already been, made up ahead of time. Now, do I think that these debates should be going on? Of course I do, but I don't like echo chambers, and I don't like people who think in grooves and canalized ways. I think that we need to have, where are the visionaries today? Where are the people like, James Baldwin and, like Fannie Lou Hamer and, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X's. I mean, you had a plethora of people with different kind of perspectives. And they were all in the public sphere hashing it out. And now what you have is this univocal demagoguery, and there is no substantive or paradigmatic change on the horizon from any of this. All you got is this tactical, mitigative, branding, propaganda, man. And I'm quite frankly, for academicians to be engaged in this bullshit is the biggest sin, because then what academia does is it elides again into sophistry and opportunism and tokenism. And I ain't down with that. So, but thank you, brother, for having me on, man. And
man, thank you for coming through, brother. We appreciate your contribution, man.
Appreciate you, man. I'm signing off, dog.
All right, man. Take care.
Peace.
All right. Peace. Well, thank you, brothers, for tuning in for another Friday Night Live. This was a great broadcast conversation, and we're gonna do more of this, guys, in the future, as I already indicated, man. So just look for notifications, and guys, keep pressing forward. We have to continue to hold the BMI flag, and push this independent perspective that we have, because we're living in crucial times, guys. So again, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I am the Mad Professor, and I am out of here. Enjoy what's left of your evening, and enjoy this weekend. So take care, brothers, and I will talk to you soon.